Now, today's guest lecture. Afra Raymond is a professional fellow of the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors and the managing director of Raymond and Peer Limited. You could check more of this out on their website, raymondandpeer.com. He also contributes to the press and broadcast media in Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean. His special areas of interest include real estate, property development, land use planning, property taxation, property financing, and the 2009 bailout of the CL Financial Group. You can find this work, including investigative pieces, at afraraymond.net. Afra is past president of the Institute of Surveyors of Trinidad and Tobago, 2009, which he served from 2009 to 2010, and immediate past president of the Joint Consultative Council of the Construction Industry, having served between December 2010 and November 2015. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, I present to you our guest lecturer for today, Mr. Afra Raymond.
Okay, hello, good morning, and thank you to the Guyana Press Association for the invitation to attend. I also acknowledge my colleague from the Transparency Institute of Guyana, Mr. Troy Thomas. And this is a really provocative theme, keeping power in check. Media, justice, and the rule of law. It's really thoroughly provocative. It's hard to be calm and keep my voice low. So this morning I was up early and I was reading something from the Committee to Protect Journalists. This is international body, it's American based. And the head of it is a man called Joel Simon. And Joel Simon has a really lovely essay this morning online. CPJ is the website, about the importance, the roots of the World Press Freedom Day. And he talks about how it all started. It was part of the post-war settlement and so on, and certain things to do with the East-West conflict, the communism and all of that stuff. And what it means today, and although some of us could decry it, we should support it and advance it because people lose their lives, some lose their livelihoods and so on, how important it is. And one of the points Mr. Simon made very powerfully, almost emotionally, was about the whole situation with Mr. Trump, President Trump. And about how we have a president in the States now who is actually on a mission, it seems, to destroy the media. Therefore, America's role as a champion of freedom of expression would be correspondingly diminished. And he was looking upon that as a tragedy. I'll be saying more about that. And then, of course, in today's paper, we have a letter to the editor. I think it was in Starbrook News from Mr. Nigel Westmass. And Mr. Westmass did a very important piece of work because it's an extensive letter, but Westmass went into and he excavated the whole roots of that whole offense of sedition in the colonies, where black and brown people live who were colonized by white people. I just have to say it like it is. He went into things like the Marcus Garvey movement, the UNIA, and the act was brought in to Guyana and the colonies just to suppress that movement. Okay? And it's a really important letter, and I completely support his position there, so I won't repeat it. And then, of course, we have to reach out in that same sentiment that Garvey was echoing and that so many of us have been echoing, including the colleagues. Ms. Ragbir spoke about the international dimensions of the World Press Freedom Day. We have to reach out south to south and recognize in the global south people who are making an effort to deal with this question of the fight for the truth. And what I will cite somebody some of you may not have heard of, but he's a Pakistani scholar. He's a professor of nuclear physics, and he's a fighter for freedom of expression and freedom of the press. His name is Pervez Hoodboy, Hoodboy. He's on Twitter as Hoodboyist, and his work is extremely nourishing, because he's dealing with a situation where they have a republic down there, Pakistan, with all of the instruments, elections, and a president, and a high court, and an appeal court, and all of those instruments that we would recognize. Former British colony, right? You getting it? But most of the people in the country are of a Muslim persuasion. And the imams have a grip on things. So Pervez is a professor in university teaching subjects that you might think are objective, subjects like mathematics and physics. I mean, what could be subjective about mathematics or physics? It's a fact. A line is either 2 feet long or it's 3 feet long. It can be 2 feet and 3 feet long. But there are people in the faculty who have PhDs and MScs and teaching the young people, and without getting into the whole of his argument, teaching them stupidness because of the belief system that is in control. So you have formal arrangements that are in control, like the elections and the court and the constitution and all that stuff. And then you have informal arrangements that can subvert the formal arrangements. And that is the fight that Pervez Hoodboy is fighting. And it's excellent work. If you want to read the work of somebody like us, from another part of the world we don't hear about much, because most of the news we get comes from the north or other parts of the Caribbean. Check him out. So I plug in him. Okay, we have to plug each other, south to south. And then, of course, there's a role about the state media. I think you made, Ms. Ragbe made some points about the state media that were very important. And who knows it, feels it, who feels it, knows it. I was part of the Caribbean New Media Group in Trinidad and Tobago, which is a state-owned media house, a TV station and several radio stations. So I had my own show. I used to have a show on Sunday mornings every other week. And I used to have an editorial for 1 hour discussing political issues of the day. And I used to have an editorial every Friday morning with Fazir Mohammed, the one who writes about cricket. Those of you who follow cricket. Me, Fazir, and Jesse May used to do an editorial for 15 minutes every Friday morning. And we actually got that, I got the contract with them in about July of 2010. The People's Partnership government had just taken office. And cutting a long story short, they didn't like how it was going at all. They didn't like it. So what they did is that they forced out 3 of us. The lady who was running the TV station was a lady called Ingrid Isaac. Ingrid was suspended while an alleged fraud was being investigated. She's the one who gave me the contract. Fazir Mohammed, who's probably the best loved interviewer in Trinidad and Tobago, he's an excellent writer about West Indies cricket. Fazir Mohammed, he wasn't fired, he was reassigned. So he came off the morning thing and they gave him a slot 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And they failed to renew my contract. So without ever using the word fired, this is how sinister and cunning these people could be. And I'm saying this for the young people in the audience. Without ever using the word fired, the 3 of us just weren't there anymore. One person was suspended for an investigation. Another person was reassigned. And this person had his contract, it wasn't renewed. So they never fired anybody. But the 3 of us weren't there anymore. And that is how these things can go. I mean, we raised a big protest about it. But politics is what it is, and they did not give in. And they kept on going the way they wanted to go. And that program, that station has actually fallen very far. It was the most popular morning program because of the quality of what Fazir brought it, but it's fallen very far in the stocks. And that's how the thing goes. I have suffered. It didn't affect my livelihood, but it really bothered me, you know. But the people who fired me are people I know personally. Trinidad's small like Guyana, we all know each other. And there's no need for that kind of thing. Now let's talk to the theme. I kind of warmed up now. Let's talk to the theme properly. We're really in an information age. Yeah? So we talk about where we are. We're in an information age. And we've arrived there decisively because everybody has one of these things. Everybody has one of those things. And for the first time in the history of our civilization as human beings, anybody, anywhere, who has a connection can tap in a question and get an answer. That never happened before in the history of humanity. What with Google and the World Wide Web, and so that never happened before. So we have literally, the phrase they use is torrent, and it's a potent phrase. We literally have a torrent of information coming at us. Everybody can get that information. In fact, I read a calculation back in about May or June last year, in the Economist magazine where they were speaking about the fact that for the first time a calculation had been done of the value of the assets in the world. And that, now those calculations are done periodically, but for the first time in all the years of doing those calculations, for the very first time, oil and gas was no longer the most valuable asset on the planet. That I was just about to come here to address an oil and gas conference, which I did last year in July. Oil and gas is no longer the most valuable asset on the planet. The most valuable asset on the planet is data. That is the most valuable asset on the planet. That is where the fortunes are being made. That is where the understanding is being shaped. That is where the conversation is about the conversation. And that is what this conversation is about. So you could understand where I'm coming from. The most valuable asset. So for example, and I'm coming back to all these things and I'm going to come back, just touching on some of them now, I'm going to come back and go deep. So for example, I was talking to a partner last week who's an IT maven. And he was describing to me these companies that run the whole IT universe. You know, like Facebook and Netflix, yes, and Google. Amazon is the other one. The word they use in the profession is FANG. Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. For those of you who want a cute phrase, FANG. That's the phrase they're using for them. Those mavens who are talking like that. So you're telling me how the FANG is working. Because the FANG working, the FANG has a plan, the FANG has a mind. How the FANG is working. As we say in Trinidad and Tobago, you want to tell yourself that you're getting this thing for free. And recently we have had revelations to do with Cambridge Analytica and elections and Donald Trump and Brexit and a whole lot of stuff, okay? And you want to tell yourself, in some kind of way, the way we do these moral recalculations, we call it rationalization. You want to tell yourself, well, yeah, okay, they were getting something from me, but I was getting something free from them. Because I could have talked to my cousin in New Zealand, and my schoolmate from 20 years ago, who living in Canada, we could remain in touch and see each other's children. So it wasn't like I was getting nothing. So you could kind of recalculate it and rationalize it in your mind and say, well, they weren't taking advantage of me. Maybe somebody else was being advantaged, but not me. Because I'm getting something out of this. So you rationalize. One of the most difficult things for intelligent people to do is to stop fooling yourself. Trust me. That's, for some of us, it's impossible. So coming down to the meaning of FANG. Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. FANG. Coming down to the meaning of FANG. The meaning of FANG is this, according to my partner. He said, but Afra, all you're making joke, All they don't understand what this is about, So Zuckerberg went before the Congress and he talked, and he couldn't answer some questions, and he looked kind of sorry. And then a man from WhatsApp resigned from Facebook 2 days ago, Little things happening and you're telling yourself, well, he said, that is a waste of time, He said, the fact is, what these people have cooked in the IT of the mavens, how the mavens think, what these people have cooked is a brew that is so intoxicating that probably 3/4 of the people who use Facebook cannot stop. That's the meaning of it. They cannot stop. Which means, at the moment it's free. What's to stop them making an announcement that from the 1st of June, if you want to use all the features of Facebook, you have to pay $1 US a week. That is $4 US a month. That is $48 US a year. By how many users? You understand me now? So we are thinking to ourselves, do we understand where we are? And I'm being deliberately challenging in this encounter with you all. I'm intentionally I'm not on the southern part about the press. I will go to section 18, and I will talk about that. I'm going in a different place. So you want to tell yourself that this device is yours and you bought it and you control it. And it's like a top-level sci-fi thing, like Black Mirror, one of these things. The device is controlling you. The information age is here. It's not coming, it's now. And the mavens who control FANG are people that we have to understand. And we have to understand what the moment means. This conversation is not all about FANG. I'm going to drill down and locate in Guyana. I'm coming back here. And then, of course, there's the role of citizens. We are all citizens, and we are citizens of a republic. In the case of myself, as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. In the case of yourselves, citizens of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Okay? And citizen only has responsibilities. It doesn't only have rights. So you have rights of privacy. You have rights of freedom of expression. We touched on that earlier on with Section 18 and so on. Okay, sedition and a proposed offense of sedition and so on. But you have responsibilities too. I am making the case that citizens in a modern republic, particularly educated citizens, have a special set of responsibilities. And I'm making the case to those of us in this room who are all media workers at one level or the other, or interested parties, particularly the younger people in the audience. And I'm making the point that we have a responsibility, not just to discuss the thing, but the meaning of the thing, which is how I like to say it. Anybody could discuss a thing. So yes, they had a meeting by Moray House and 42 people came. What was the meaning of the thing? We are here to discuss the meaning of the thing. I am here to discuss the meaning of it. And then, of course, coming to the role of the Guyana Press Association, we have to treat with the role of the media. The media is, in fact, the interface, to use that geeky language. The media is the interface between the citizenry and the state and the officials and what they're planning to do and what they're actually doing and they didn't do this and so on. The media is the interface. And your job, our job, because I consider myself part of the media, our job is to excavate what they're really doing. Compare that to what they said they would do. Prepare some estimates about what is the impact of what they're actually doing. Is there a gap? If there's a gap, in which direction is the gap? And the gap could exist in surprising directions. Don't assume you know what the gap is. Every time I assume that I know what something is when I'm going to go and research a particular matter, like 8 or 9 out of 10 times I assume that I know the pattern is going to be so. It isn't so. When you actually look at the hard primary data, very often, even those of us who consider ourselves experts, we are wrong, wrong, wrong. So the role of the citizen is very important. And we have to balance the scale, because we're discussing an exercise of balancing the scale. We have to balance the scale in between two opposing forces. On the one hand, we discuss the information age that we all exist in. We discuss FANG. We discuss the impact of FANG. We discuss the possibility that 3/4 of us are irreparably addicted. And we discuss the amount of information they have on us. And what we have to contemplate, if we have a sober contemplation of that, is that what we have created or given birth to at this time, in 2018, is what I have termed an information monarchy. We have 6, 7, 10 people who know a whole set of things about people that, trust me, long time the head of the CIA didn't know that much about people. We are in a totally unprecedented situation. And the real question before us is, when you give someone that amount of power, when you give someone that amount of influence, when there's a lack of proper insight, the lack of proper oversight, because there definitely is proper insight. When there's a lack of proper oversight, what can we expect? Can we expect charitable conduct? Can we expect the Boy Scouts code of ethics? What could we expect to happen to us next? Down here, people looking like us, people who have exposed ourselves in this way. And on the other hand, so over here we have the information monarchy, and on the other hand, we have the citizens of republics. And the meaning of a republic is that all of us are supposed to be equal. We have equal rights, we have equal responsibilities. They're not supposed to be anymore any king this or queen that, or emperor, or any earl, or any baron, or any of those things. Those are old-fashioned things in the history book. It's a republic. Anybody could become president, right? You understand? So how does one reconcile the reality that we are in a situation of information monarchy with the reality that we exist in republics? We are citizens of republics, and those republican impulses have been ignited in us, and they're not going to go out. We're not going to pack them away. We're not going to say, oh, well, that's something we used to do last year. We're not going to do it this year, which is what is behind the protests over 18. Because people are not accepting that kind of thing that they might have accepted 50 or 60 years ago. They're not accepting that anymore. Okay? So section 18 of the proposed cybercrime bill, I did look at it, and section 18, it's pretty clear to me, attempts to traverse and restrict the right of freedom of expression and freedom of comment with respect to how people discuss affairs. In particular, the section appears to be aimed at the conduct of the state and the conduct of official affairs, okay? And serious criminal offenses are put in. The act itself creates quite a number of criminal offenses. So I'm not in support of that approach. I actually think, apart from it being unsupportable and quite likely in breach of the Constitution and Guyana's treaty obligations, because Guyana would have signed treaty obligations that other colleagues have referred to this morning. Apart from that, there's also the question of enforceability and bringing the system into ridicule. Let's talk about that for 30 seconds. So you as a government are serious about an issue, and you bring a law, and you propose a law, you draft it, and you put it in place, and perhaps just this once, the opposition and yourself, who could never agree on anything, you agree on this one thing. As you say in Trinidad and Tobago, for whatever reason. So you agree on this one thing. And you vote and you get the law with all of the, the special majority to suspend the rights in the Constitution. And all these sorts of aspects of the law are satisfied. For anybody in here who has a legal mind, I'm seeing at least one of them. Okay, all of those aspects are satisfied. It's a satisfactory piece of law in that respect. It could withstand a test in the court. But what is all that about, really? If government decided to do a program concerning X, whichever government, because remember both of them voted for it, so if X is something that they're doing, and people are objecting to X because they don't want it, and they're protesting, and they're making memes and cartoons and calypsos, and they're making everybody look ridiculous, and jokes and all kinds of things. You know the way the world is now. It's not a simple thing again. It's 19 different ways you could ridicule somebody. So you're doing it, you're putting things on Facebook, Muppets, all kind of thing. You make a false thing with anonymous, you do all kind of thing. Who are they going to prosecute? Because the way the world is now, all of those things that emanate from outside of Guyana. That's what happens in the world now. That's what the whole thing in America is about, the Trump and Russia and the whole thing. And the people who are tweeting and things. None of them in America. They can't hold anybody. The most they can do is hold somebody who would already tell a man something. But the people who are tweeting and twittering and whatever, they were never in America. They were in some warehouses in Russia or whatever. So that's the world now. So the very said thing that you're trying to fight with is not even in the room. That's the fang. That's the fang at work. It's not in the room. Okay? Now, the best book I would suggest is a couple books I'm going to suggest to you all, because I read intensely about these questions, and then I'm going to try to suggest an agenda for some things that we should be thinking about. The first book I would suggest that gives a proper, compact insight into this question about the information age and the role of FANG and the national security aspect of it, which I haven't touched on so far. Because the national security agencies have all your information. There's this joke that no, sorry, I wouldn't make that joke here. So the fact is that we have a situation where the book I'm recommending is No Place to Hide. Very simple title, by Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald is an attorney, he's a constitutional attorney by profession. He's also a writer, he wrote for The Guardian and so. And he's the one, when Edgar Snowden wanted to meet somebody to disclose his papers, Edgar Snowden was trapped in Russia. Edward Snowden was trapped in Russia. When he wanted to meet somebody, he sent for Glenn Greenwald. He said, I want to meet you because of the quality of his work. And they had a whole secret thing about how they had to meet. The first half of the book is really a description that will make your jaw drop. You think you know how much I know about you? Read No Place to Hide. You'll be like this. All that stuff on the internet about buying something for your firewall and to buy something to prevent spam, all of those companies have signed up contracts with the Americans and they give away everything. All Yahoo is safer than this one. All of that is just we'll talk. Everybody is sharing everything. Fang at work. Okay, and for Fang to get to where it was, Fang had to do a deal. Just like how you see certain people within the political firmament survive. It doesn't matter who come to government. This one come to government, they're big. They lose election, they come to government, the person's still big. I'm not calling names. You know, I have people so in Trinidad too. They're big. The party in power. And you know why? They had to cut a deal. There's no magic in it. It's not any prayers or anything. They cut a deal. Something they can't talk about. They went down in the night and they agreed that this. And that is what Fang did. Understand me? Fang cut a deal with. So that's how all that information is there. No Place to Hide. The first half of the book describes in tremendous detail, you would never forget reading it, exactly how all of our information is compromised. The second half of the book, I am predicting is destined to become a classic. Like how we hear about essays by Rousseau, or an essay by C.L.R. James, or an essay George Lamming would have written, or Martin Carter essay, the essay is 60, 70 years old, people still talking about it. And when you read it, you understand why a Derek Walcott essay, you read some of these things, okay, Naipaul. Those essays by Glenn Greenwald in the second half of the book, he discusses, as I said at the beginning, not just the thing, but the meaning of the thing. Greenwald discusses the meaning of the fact that we no longer have privacy. And not only do we no longer have privacy, we fully well know that we no longer have privacy. Therefore, the fact that we fully well know we no longer have privacy is affecting and has affected our minds and the way we communicate with each other. It's real deep, it's real provocative. It's affected the way we organize politically. What we say and we don't say to each other. And in a certain dimension, we are extremely, extremely frank. And we have a kind of an exchange and a kind of lacquer and a kind of old talk with each other that we didn't have 50 years ago in public. So you could tell a politician, well, I find he is blah, and it will come out on Facebook. But at another level, we're not really having the discussion we need to be having. We're not having a real conversation, and I want to go there now. So I would return to the start of my speech when I started speaking about Joel Simon, who's the executive director of the Committee to Protect Journalists. And Simon had this lovely essay in this morning's webpage where he talked about the meaning of the World Press Freedom Day. And he talked about, in particular with a lot of pain, about the aspect of Mr. Trump, President Trump's behavior, and his decision to attack the press, and how that would undermine the whole cause. And I want to stay here and go into some deeper waters now. I was warming up so far. I want to stay here and I want to say, so what? So what if England voted for Brexit? So what if America voted for President Trump? Why is that bothering us? In fact, I am delighted. I was delighted when Trump was elected. I was delighted when England voted for Brexit. I felt a thrill. I ain't ashamed to tell all you. I felt a thrill. And I'm going to tell you why I felt a thrill. Because it's coming to the question of the real conversation. You see, what has come out of the pain, the anguish that people are feeling now, people like Joel Simon and so on, people who've been writing about these things, is the fact that to a large extent the media gave birth to Brexit and the media gave birth to President Trump. They gave them lots of free publicity. Trump never had to pay for advertisements. Everybody was always writing about him all the time. Okay? So there's a responsibility. You see, we started up, the main anchor in the theme is keeping power in check. And I want to bounce with you now and say to you, it's a little bit more, and it has to be more, than merely keeping the power of the state or keeping the power of this political party or that in check. It's also that the media has to recognize it has a power and it has a responsibility. How do we keep that in check? Because the obverse of it is events like Brexit and President Trump. That's what happens. So it was interesting. It mightn't have been true, but it's interesting, so they put it on TV. Are you understanding me? And then it was funny. Maybe it wasn't true, but they put that on TV too. Are you getting me? And then somebody was saying something that it might have been a racist thing in England, but you know what? False equivalence. He has an opinion too, so you put that on TV too. Okay? So the responsibility discussion and the keeping power in check discussion has to be deep if it is going to be a complete and a meaningful one. It really has to be. Who are the monsters we are growing now in the dark? Feeding them and minding the plants and wetting them and talking to them in the morning. Who are the monsters we are growing now? Who is coming in the next 20 years to deal with us? Are we dealing with them nicely now? Giving them a little interview, and it's just a point of view, and so on and so on. That's how it happened. And Trump, all the jokes and the laughter and people trying to make out that he's a stupid man, he played every single one of them. He went to Columbia and Yale and Harvard. He played all, like the Calypso say, all, till the falls hair fall. He played everybody. Our real conversation, and the reason that I am happy about the Brexit decision and the President Trump's election, is this. All the time growing up in the Caribbean, and I spent some years in England, all the years growing up, I have been in thousands of conversations with people, educated people, conscientious people, people who want to do better, and they're discussing this thing or that thing, whether it was education, or the police, or elections, or the economy, or whatever were the major things we were discussing at the time, over the years with friends and family. And eventually, the conversation always seemed to come to a particular point. And the point was this. The conversation seemed to come to the point where, in fact, somebody would sigh and they would say, well, you know, if this was in Birmingham, that person would have resigned by now. This was in England. I was up there last year with my family. If I was in England, that person would have resigned. And then other people say, well, in fact, if that was in Delaware, you know, police hold him already because they don't make joke with those things in Uncle Sam country and so on and so on. So that was the sentiment. And underlying the sentiment was a belief system that said that these people, the colonials, the white people, these people, the global north, these people have their business organized. These people have a philosophy. These people have a way to put their philosophy into effect. These people are better than us. I never accepted that. I used to argue plaintively for years and years. My whole head turned white arguing this thing. And then Brexit happened. And then President Trump was elected. And at last, we have a possibility, because nothing in life is ever more than a possibility. Yeah? And you have to recognize the possibility and play for change. For the first time in my life, we have proof positive, unavoidable, that where politics is concerned, England could do stupidness. And where politics is concerned, America could do stupidness. And for all the people who don't read books, and it's not only young people, but I know young people do read books. For all the people who don't read books, and that history book is too much, one of them who always on their phone, or on Facebook, or some one of those fang things. For those people who are always there, because of what Brexit represents in terms of the collapse of everything England might have been, and the collapse is still going on, it's going to be epic, eh? And because of the election of President Trump also represents a similar shift and or collapse, it is being played out in extremely anguished terms right across span. So even those people who are not reading a book, them are not getting the message. So the possibility exists for the first time as Caribbean people, as people of color, people of African descent, Indian descent, we're in the global south. For the first time, we have the possibility that we could recognize our problems, look them in the eye, realize that the other people, those people, they could do stupidness too. on a big scale. Okay? So you stop feeling bad about yourself. Stand up straight. Take the monkey off your back, that addiction, and let us start to walk forward and deal with our problems. So I am extremely happy that Brexit happened. I nearly cried when Trump was elected, just emotion. I was so happy. Every time he does something that's outrageous, yes, do another one, Donald. Give us one by 2 o'clock. I want people to feel it, because I'm not slapping you. The man who knows better than you, here, take another slap. And then you might wake up and understand what it is going on. For us in the Caribbean, my own observation, my own belief is that we have become captivated by a set of party political thing, what I call race talk, identity politics, a whole identity politics epidemic has taken over the place. And you can't get a discussion about regionalism. Why can't we get a discussion on regionalism? Well, when last was there a good, hot, solid exchange about regionalism? Is it something that we shouldn't talk about again? We shouldn't bother? Maybe we should bother? I think if we had proper regionalism, my respectful view is Guyana would be in a better place to deal with, for example, the refugee problems you're having with the neighboring countries. I think you'd be in a better place to deal with that in international and regional forum. But regionalism is something you could almost never get a discussion. Okay? Where are we with respect to the environmental changes that are coming? Those of you would have seen the strange weather and so on is coming. It's here. How is a country like Guyana, with all of its potential and its beauty, how is Guyana going to reckon with that, with the sea wall and sea level rises? Or what is the plan? Is there a plan? Does regionalism have a way out of it? So there are very serious matters we need to have a discussion on. What is the role of agriculture in transforming the Caribbean economy? Can we make use of our diaspora to promote agro-business? That discussion I just raised about agriculture and the transformation of the economy, where does marijuana fit into that? I'm completely serious. Where does marijuana fit into that? Does it fit in? I mean, now that the white people have legalized it, we can start to talk about it. But are we going to legalize it? On what terms? On what terms? Are we going to legalize it as an industry? Or are we going to wait and pretend we don't know what's happening and wring our hands and let our leaders off the hook? And when you turn around and you sneeze twice, in 4 or 5 years time you find out that Bayer and this company and that company have a license, and for you to call something that, you have to go to them and a whole thing. And they license all the names and everything. We're waiting for that? Waiting for opportunity to pass us by again? What is the agenda for us as Caribbean people? An agenda that has 10 years in it, 20 years in it, 30 years in it. How do we use fun to promote our agenda? And that is what colleagues in the media, in my respectful view, should be considering. How do we use fun? How do we use Google with YouTube to promote these discussions and these ideas? Yes? How do we use Twitter to promote these discussions and these ideas? How do we escape, as I call it, the shallows of identity politics? So this one over there is a quarter Chinese, and therefore I must recognize his thing on a whole. And the main thing, we're not discussing it. Like, we can't seem to find the time. We're always discussing something more interesting. I also want to close off by saying this point. I want to quote Lloyd Best, my late friend, Caribbean thinker. He lived in Guyana for a number of years. And I want to quote Lloyd when he gave a speech in about 06 or 07 about what had gone wrong in Trinidad and Tobago. And Lloyd was actually trying to challenge people who said they were working for a change and who said they wanted a different outcome. And according to Lloyd, if you want a change and you want a different outcome, you have to move beyond merely what is true or what is interesting. Because there are plenty of things that are completely true and that are very, very interesting. And you could discuss them, as the old people say, forevermore, and nothing would change. We have to develop the discipline to focus on what is decisive and make that our work if we want to make a change. So that's what I want to say to colleagues. I thank you for the opportunity and your attention, and thank you very much. Thank you.